Okay, so let's get started. Thank you for coming today. I know everybody has some busy schedules and wants some break from between finals and fall semester. So today our topic will be teaching strategies for the active learning classroom, which is the Rush Collaborative Learning Hub. They're calling it CLUB. And I know a lot of people have asked me, like, what's CLUB? So that's what it stands for. Whenever you see CLUB, it's the Collaborative Learning Hub Classrooms, which is 550. So there's two, right now there's two spaces, but we can open this up. There'll be one huge space. Yeah, so that's a partition there. And then we also have the fourth floor, which accommodates about this size students too. And it almost looks exactly like this. The technology and everything else is the same. So now let me introduce myself, because you're like, who is this person? I'm Branka Manojlovic. I'm one of the instructional designers over at City on the 9th floor, and some faces are really familiar, so I know I've worked with a few of you. And I think it looks like you're all College of Nursing. Correct me if I'm wrong. No? Health Sciences? Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So I have to do double duty here. There's a little bit of a lag between my slides. So these will be our objectives for today. Identify the importance of classroom management, prepare and manage the classroom for active learning, identify methods for time management of classroom and activities, identify no-tech, low-tech, and high-tech learning activities, and then prepare a teacher toolkit that you can use in this active learning classroom. Because one thing I really do want to emphasize, just because everything is shiny and brand new and all this wonderful technology and gadgets, that shouldn't be your emphasis when it comes to active learning in the classroom. So we're going to kind of jump through it towards the end about little quick activities, but you're also going to be doing some activities too. You're going to kind of see that low tech and no tech. I really don't want to focus on high tech because that really involves the net support school and the air media and all that, and we have a tech session for that. So I kind of really didn't want to use a lot. So in a nutshell, these are the topics during this session that we're going to cover to prepare you to teach in this active learning classroom. We can spend all day talking about active learning. There's so much research, so much studies, so many things that you can do. But so we went to University of Illinois and Purdue University and with some of the staff there about their active learning classrooms. So we came out with these 5 topics really that were really emphasized in these discussions that really need to help faculty to prepare for this type of classroom. So we're going to move on to 3 activities right now, and it's going to focus around these 3 questions for this active learning space. What challenges do you anticipate in this classroom? What gets you excited about learning and teaching in this classroom? And what are your goals for teaching in this classroom? Okay, so our first one is going to be a think, pair, share. And I think everybody kind of knows what a think, pair, share is. We're going to take about 5 minutes for this activity. I want you to take a minute to think about and write any teaching challenges you anticipate in an active learning classroom. Okay, so individually, I want you to kind of work on that question and think about any challenges that you can. So look around. So it's going to really focus on this classroom. So kind of look around and when you teach, what can be some of the challenges that I'm going to encounter in this classroom that I have to think about? As soon as you all have something ready, I'll give you a minute, and then we're going to pair up and we're going to talk. Yeah, it could be a 3-person. It doesn't have to be like just a. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few more seconds, and then if you can just pair up or with your neighbors. Yeah, I think most of you have. Yeah. And then we're going to pass the mic around, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges. that we come up with. Okay, so who wants to start off our discussion on some of the challenges? Group A, C, Group C. Grab your microphone. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can. I'm very good with it. Huh. Yeah.
Hello. Just have to turn it on. Just have to turn it on.
That, yeah. I wonder if there's this one works. I know we're all teachers and we're used to project, but it's just nice to get acclimated to, using a microphone, so you're not having to shout and wear out your voice.
Good morning, everybody. We just jumped into sharing right away, so I'm going to pass the mic around. We love to share it, especially at this table. So I'm going to share my challenge that I shared with my group is when we talk about active learning, the challenge that I'm concerned about is how to engage all the students. We are all faced in traditional formats where you have that, high-performing student who monopolizes, not monopolizes, not a good word, but is more active in discussion. How are you going to engage all students in this format here?
Good morning as well. The question I was having or concern I have is the distractions that the students have in front of them, even in this room. It's nice, it's beautiful, it's shiny. I'm super impressed, which doesn't matter, but I am. So my concern is students are already distracted in the classroom and they're going to come into this classroom. Are they going to be distracted by the other group at the other table that's going to be talking? Or if they put up a divider to split up in this particular room, because you said this room is not dividable. And are my board students going to start listening to who's ever teaching on the other side of here? So again, I think there might be some distractions that I'm concerned about for the students.
Good morning. And for me, I wondered about unprepared students. So when you think about active learning, you want students to have done something ideally before they get in the classroom. And how do you sort of facilitate that, make sure that happens? And then our final thing, which is kind of a group thing, was we're a little gun shy about technology around here. And so what happens when you're in this space and this space is not working well?
Good morning. We had kind of the same things, except one of the things was the fact that the room is big and that and I know Kathy kind of said the same thing, but I work with a group of students and they constantly want a lot of faculty attention. So when you think about small groups, what's the faculty to student ratio that will give you the optimum success for whatever it is you're going to do? Because it just seems like even though we have a number of faculty, how many does it really take?
I think most topics were covered of mine, except maybe what you have to do as faculty to prepare, like your objectives for the activity and defining the minimum must-learn items to make sure that each group, those things were covered. Because obviously with this activity, you want them to be learning things that are testable material and material they need to know for safe practice. So it's hard, again, with if you're one person, like I am, mostly with 80 students, how am I getting around to each group to say, okay, did you get X, Y, and Z from this activity?
So Lynn basically did a really good job of saying the one concern that I've had, and I've done quite a bit of case-based teaching where the students are divided up in small groups. Of course, I'm trying to do it in 976, which if anybody knows what 976 looks like, you're like, it's not conducive. So I'm really excited about this space. But just to tag on to that is learning how in a space like this, if you have one instructor, one faculty member, how you get, like, what would be the best way in this room that to pull people back together, besides just hollering, like classroom, I guess you would call that classroom management, really, techniques, besides, getting up at a microphone and just saying, okay, and then everybody continues to talk and continues to talk and continues to talk. How do you manage that?
Well, for me, I think too the challenge will be the expectations of the students and how many of them are familiar with this setup, and it might be a little threatening to them. So I think that's also sort of speaks to classroom management and setting up how things are going to work to start with, so the students know the roadmap.
I'm running out of board. You want to?
I think pretty much everything's been covered for the most part. Something I just mentioned briefly was the idea of not only classroom management, but the time management, but that you already had on the board is if you get really involved in what you're doing, then how do you make sure you're still staying on time for everything that needs to get done? Because I could see getting really excited or into the activity that you're doing and making sure that you're not going over the time you have allotted for that.
Time management.
I think all of mine were covered for the most part as far as challenges anticipated. This is kind of not related to the learning strategies, but I'm unclear on if I'll be able to even like use the space or get the space. So like where we're doing is on the 7th floor lab space, and it's really loud when we're doing collaborative learning things, but as far as logistics to even reserve the space.
Morning. I'm more concerned about the club tech session. I'm not an instructor or a faculty. I'm just concerned about that since I'm a clerkship coordinator, because I'm quite sure Dr. Lloyd wouldn't know how to set the room up, but I can learn how.
I think everything that has already been said, but one issue is the noise level in the room. That's a major thing I'm concerned about, and also just the students that we cater to in the health systems management department are coming from Big Ten schools, and they really want the individualized attention. That's the reason why they've selected to come to Rush, and I'm concerned that we're moving so much to kind of student learning and doing it independently to themselves that people want faculty time, and they want undivided faculty time. So our students tend to complain that we're asking them to pay an inordinate amount of money to attend Rush, and they really want quality instruction and faculty time.
So I'm going to say a lot of these are very good points. We're going to touch up on a lot of these in the coming slides. But I just do want to point out these two. I will not, only because the club tech sessions, we have people from our IS and PEG who will be talking more about this room and the technology in this room. So I would strongly urge you to attend their sessions. They have 2 more after this throughout the day. Let me see. Yes, right now and then this afternoon. Yeah. So play and apply and tech sessions, they will cover all of that, the classroom. But now we're all coming. So let's discuss what gets you excited in the classroom. Little. And there's also a QR code. So if I can get my presentation here, you can also scan the QR code. Oh, maybe, I think I had to update it, but try that one. 12865, yeah. Oh, yeah. So what gets you excited? I mean, 1 or 2 words. To kind of build this into a word cloud and see what everybody's. So if people kind of the same response, the same word, that word. So the biggest one is creativity. That's a fun word. New ideas. interaction is our biggest, all fit perfectly in the classroom. Yeah, and to make, you got to be creative to be fun in this classroom. It's web-based. Yeah, yeah. So it's not like, it's a software. It's web-based software. I like it. I think it's a little more creative, coming from the word that we just talked about to use. No, not when it's just this room and the connections in this room. Yeah, so they're kind of working on that lag time. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is getting there. We're going to kind of do another discussion here, and we're going to take about a couple minutes. And this is a little bit of more of an individual activity. So I want you to now think about what goals you have for teaching in this classroom. And for this activity, we're going to do a series of event chains. So there's some paper. So what this, there we go. I don't know if anybody's familiar with this. So basically, in about a minute, write down 3 goals that you have for this classroom that you can think of. Think about your teaching, think about this classroom, and then once you write down those goals, choose one, any one you want, the most challenging or maybe the least challenging goal that you have. And then I want you to write a series of events, process of how you're going to get to this goal. Now, you can do it all at once, or you can just wait and work through it with this session. So this is the nice thing about this activity, is that you can kind of down some thoughts, what those steps could be, or and then revise them as we go through to see how you're going to achieve those goals. One more second, I'll wrap up. So keep that goal handy. Steps you need to take, or as we can think of, like, oh, I didn't even think about this. This is like one other step that I need to take for this active learning classroom. For our next one, I'm not going to go too much into teaching and learning. That's kind of Lynette and Angela's session. Their session is more about active learning and all the things. But what I do touch on is that you really, when you walk in this classroom and the students walk in this classroom for the very first time, you need to let them understand why an active learning classroom is good for learning. Why is it good for their learning? You really have to have like a quick discussion or activity or something to let them know that this is a good space for them. This is great for their learning. What you have to think about beforehand is how will you help your students understand why this open and really cool space is good. They do. So like I said, when they look at these, don't emphasize all the technology either. It's just what you really need to emphasize is collaborative learning, and then discussions and group work. So those types of things, rather than just focusing on the technology. And then using this room, just tell them freely use this room. If you need to move a table over to work with another group, move the table over. But I think you kind of really have to spend like a class session, the very first class session, just working them through this classroom. And then so you're going to have students that are resistant. We all know this. There are students that just look and say, I don't want to work in I don't want to work in this group. But then you kind of also have to, this is health, professional school. So you're going to have to talk to different people in different groups. So the best place to learn it is in a comfortable environment like this, where you can make mistakes and you can ask questions and it's okay. So it's kind of like just really getting them acclimated and teaching them why it's really good to be in this classroom. Okay, and then I'm going to go through some tips for learning classrooms. Of their content to prepare them to actively engage in this classroom. And that's one of the things that we discussed earlier. There's a lot of different ways you obviously, a lot of you flip classroom, and flip classroom is really the only way to use this type of classroom. But for every single objective or something they really need to learn that really needs this kind of space, you can definitely talk to us and say, hey, I have this activity, I have this topic, they really need to work in groups, they really need this classroom, and we can kind of work together and figure out how you can use this classroom. Okay, to lecture in this, to say this at all. You don't want to be used for an hour. If you need to come in and reinforce a concept, minutes is perfect to get them going in their activity. And then keep your students active and engaged. It also involves you being active and participating in this classroom with your students. And kind of standing up here. But really, like, with your students, and if you see that, they're quite not getting a concept, then you can just stop the classroom and say, hey, I'm walking around and this is what I'm finding out. We need to stop. And that's where your kind of 10 to 15-minute lecture can come in. So there's a lot of different ways you can use this classroom. And then obviously key is how to use and manage this classroom, which we'll kind of talk about in the next few slides. So our next topic will be classroom management. Why is classroom management important to prepare for teaching in an active learning classroom? This is kind of a question that you have to keep in the back of your mind. Okay, so when we went to Purdue and University of Illinois, classroom management was a big topic item, a big discussion item with us. And these were the four kind of main discussion areas that we had and that they had to prepare their faculty for down at those universities for the active learning. And I'm going to tell you, Purdue University has an active learning classroom. It's a whole building, actually, dedicated just to active learning. And they were lucky. They had a year and a half to prepare their faculty classrooms, and we're kind of, getting you thrown into this, but it's all good. Managing. So think about the classroom space. Think about where you're going to stand. Obviously we have these great nifty little carts that can move. All these carts can move. And ideally, stationing yourself in the middle of the classroom would be best. But then, I'm going to have my back towards, sometimes my back is going to be towards you, and that's okay. But you kind of also have to be consistent too that, this half you're always kind of having your back turned, and this class, this half of the class you're facing mostly. So get a little used to, working and navigating this classroom. So yeah, to guide your students to listen, and then identify what you need, and be sure that you have tablets. So these will come with the classrooms. Microphones will come. It's like a little classroom. And then also you can bring your own laptop, obviously, too, because, technology sometimes fails. So it's always good to have a backup. Bring your laptop as well. So you can use your own laptop for these classrooms. The tablets that come with it will help you manage everything else. There's also a panel over there that can help you if you don't have a tablet. But this is more for the tech sessions, and they will kind of run through and go through all that. But those are the kinds of things you have to really think about beforehand. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that's what these tablets are for. Other clickers. Yeah. Which I probably should be demonstrating that to you all. But the problem is, if I want to see my notes, I have to use both. They're working on that. So this is why we're here. They're working out all these little bugs, before you all come in. Yeah. So I have to use this so I can see my notes, and then you all screen. So they're trying to work those. But yeah, that's what these tablets are for. It's really, and you can flip them around. They're touch screen. You can also use a pen on them. So yeah, there's a lot of neat ways of using this technology. Okay, so then another thing you have to think about is managing, which is another topic. You need to identify how the students will be seated in these classrooms. So you kind of have to think about, as we talked about earlier, if you're doing 2 different classroom sessions, those camera out work out beforehand. And when you come to classroom, say, okay, this is how I want my tables. This is how you see these tables, this is how I wanted this room to be situated. I kind of wanted to have everybody have like sight of me, so I kind of adjust tables around. Those tables, you can put 2 of the brown tables together, and they can seat 6. These stay as is. So there's a lot to think about beforehand. So like I said, we're always here to help if you have any questions. Yeah, board, yeah. 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 You also think about how to identify these groups as well. So obviously, on each table, I identified each of you group A, any which way you want. It's a good visual to see as you're having a discussion. Group B, it's your turn, or why don't group B and group F, collaborate and talk and work on this. So having that visual, because you don't want to sit there and, what group are you again? And then it just makes the flow of the classroom easier. You can also let them, so seating 2, you can assign groups, or you can have students come in and sit down. So, we have 5 different groups here. Find a spot and sit down. Because otherwise, then you might have students that want to sit over here. And if that's not really how you want them, they're just going to sit anywhere. So if you kind of have to manage that and tell them ahead of time, like, hey, there's group arrangements. There's a name on each table. Find a seat. 5 to seat, kind of thing. And also another really good strategy to keep those flow students is assign group roles. You can have one person do recording. You can have one person have one person who's doing the text to present, or whatever you need the tech for. So assign each person a role, so that way you also, everyone has a job. So there's always one or two people that kind of just want to sit there and really don't want to do the work. If you kind of assign these group roles, everybody's going to be forced to do a job, to do something, and let them choose. Like, so if someone's really great at tech but doesn't want to talk, I mean, that's perfect. That's their job. They can worry and focus on the tech, you know, on the carts and laptops, however you arrange the activity for students. So furniture arrangement, we kind of touched on that also. How you want furniture arranged. These whiteboards too, all can be pushed together. Room dividers, and so tiny little micro classrooms for you know, your full classroom as well. The lighting, the technology, you know, all of that is kind of considered furniture arrangement. So you kind of have to prepare and walk yourself before you walk in this classroom about how you're going to use everything in here. Yes. That's a good Lynette question. Last time we talked about that, we weren't sure who was going to be doing the furniture arrangement. If it was a group or somebody they're going to have, we're not sure yet. I think they're still working it out. I just came in here and arranged everything myself. Yeah. Well, there's a storage. Yeah, right here on the other side. Yeah, there's a few here, and there's also a storage room between the two classrooms. So all the whiteboards and tables and chairs will be in there too. So, yes, yes, that one too. I think they have a storage. They'd have a storage room too that houses. Yeah, because you don't want like 60 whiteboards sitting on the room because it kind of clutters it too. Okay. Last one that I'm gonna. Make clear instructions for all your activities. Exactly know when they walk in this class what they need to do, how they're going to do it. So as you saw in my earlier slides, I was kind of really explicit on like, writing those directions out and telling you all what to do and the amount of time that I'm giving you, because that's kind of what we're going to touch on with time management. Is you really have to emphasize that if I'm giving you 5 minutes, you have 5 minutes and we have to move on. But then there's other strategies we'll kind of talk about later about that too. So some of the things when you think about what we just talked about is preparing and teaching and managing in this classroom. It doesn't have to be for the whole semester. It could just be for that one particular class. Hey students, we're going to be in this active learning classroom. This is what you need to do to prepare for this classroom. I want you to read this. I want you to watch this video beforehand. So they have some background knowledge when they're coming to this classroom for that activity. And like I said, if you still need to lecture 10 or 15 minutes, that's perfectly fine. We're not going to sit there and say, you just lectured. We're just going to ding you on that, value or, observation. It has, you're probably going to have to at some point, do some mini lectures just to, like I said, reinforce some topics, maybe introduce some new learning. But try and get them prepared as much as you can before they walk in this classroom. Another easy way of doing that is to prepare a lesson plan. So I know that's a big K through 12, but it works in higher education too. If you can prepare a lesson plan for your classroom for that day, like we're going to walk in, I'm going to spend 10 to 15 minutes introducing this classroom. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes introducing this topic that that I want them specifically coming from me to learn versus what they're reading or watching. And then move into your activity and kind of really write down those activities and time. So I'm going to give myself 30 minutes for this activity for the students. So that lesson plan comes in really handy to kind of keep you on track and on schedule, and then your students as well. So you're kind of really using what you need to. Huh? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So I'm going to rush through these. So identify blocks of time, and again, like we talked about, create a lesson plan. And then really stick to that time. If there's something that you really want to discuss, or use an exit ticket. Have a little like sticky note, prepare it at each table. If there's something, you can tell your students, I only gave you 5 minutes, but if there's something that you really need me to touch on the next class session, or if there's any other questions that we need to kind of revert back to, just use that little sticky note, and then you can have them as they walk out. Just put it on one of the whiteboards, and then you can collect them and kind of go through them. And then you can also see a theme. If there's a theme of like, hey, I didn't understand this, or I really need help with this, or I need more time with this, then you can adjust your lesson plan the next time around. Okay, and then no tech, low tech, and a high tech. So we kind of when you're thinking about this classroom, think about those 3 areas. What are my activities if I'm going to use no tech? What are my activities that we used earlier? And then high tech obviously is the air media net support and any simulcast that you maybe want to have in the classroom. Always prepare for a backup. So if you're using, prepare for a backup, and that so they can be engaged, while you're waiting for someone to come in from IT to help out. You don't want to kind of just have a standstill of 10, 15 minutes waiting, for the technology to come back up. Okay. So going into that, Plan B, I have this little teacher toolkit. So my suggestion is to have something handy like this. I'm actually going to pull this off for people that came to the session. There's activity cards in here. This is all the no tech. There's a bunch of activities in here you can go through, and I can share this on our city website at the end of this week. But this is a good plan B if your technology isn't working. There's markers in here. There's those sticky notes in here as well that you can pass out. There's also cardstock paper, so if you want to make different group names. So I have this. It's actually an egg. I can't do 2 things at one time. Sorry. So if you want to make sure that everybody's focused, I found this. It's an egg. Kind of whoever's speaking holds the egg. So that way, students know I'm holding the egg. I have the floor. I'm talking. The other students also say, hey, I got to pay attention. They have the egg. Also, there's an activity for grab bag. You can where you pull questions out. I have a bunch of questions, and the students pull out a question for discussion, put it in here, and they can just use it as a grab bag. Creative is what our word was here. And then just note cards, and dry erase markers. I would suggest always. So I have a little box. There's some dry erase markers in here. There's some color pencils. Some students are really creative and want to, or give them an alternative. They can do it either high tech or no tech way. There are not, but that's a good suggestion. I will definitely pass on. Normally, some of these tables, they do have a dry erase board that you could hang on, but they didn't order those type of tables. They did, yeah. Yeah, so those are some of my references. Like I said, we went out to University of Illinois and Purdue University, and there's also a great little book. And then if there's evaluation, also you can visit rush.edu/eval and fill out, the evaluation online for the session, or there's a QR code that will too. Center for Innovation. So we're on the 9th floor. Yes, yes. I know we're getting word. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then also this session was recorded, so we're going to have that recording available as well. Oh yeah. 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 So did you want to schedule an appointment? I mean, we can. Yeah. Great. being in, you know, K through 12, like that was where my master's, I'm still kind of preparing for that, but is Kahoot is where like that came from. The teachers and students love Kahoot. My kids came at Kahoot today. It was great. It was like I don't know, and for them that session it just stuck in their heads more what they learned that day. We're sitting there going, oh, so far. That's what you want this classroom to be. You want this of exciting for them. I know it's going to be in the first couple days, but you know, once it gets going, everybody's going to love it. You're going to love it. If anybody doesn't know, my name's kind of off to the side. Angela Silk is our director, and then me, and we have Mark, and we have Lynette. Shoot us an email, and we're happy to meet with you. And that's it. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I only went over 2 minutes, so.